There is a moment in every baseball game when the crowd stops making noise. Not because something beautiful happened. Not because a record was broken or a perfect pitch was thrown. But because something went wrong in a way that nobody in that stadium was prepared for. The kind of wrong that makes 60,000 people inhale at exactly the same time and hold it. That moment happened on that night. And the man lying on the ground, gripping his body in pain, was the one player in the sport that nobody, not opponents, not rivals, not even the fiercest competitors in the game, ever wants to see hurt. Shohei Ohtani was down. And the silence that followed was the loudest sound in the stadium. There are plays in baseball that happen within the rules and still feel wrong. There are pitches that are technically legal and still carry intent that every player on the field can feel. There are moments where the line between competitive aggression and deliberate harm becomes so thin that even the most experienced officials struggle to call it clearly in real time. What happened on that mound, in that inning, with that specific pitch sequence, sits so far beyond that line that the struggle to call it is already over. This was not an accident. Those who were in the stadium that night, players, coaches, reporters, fans seated close enough to see what the television cameras only partially captured, describe a sequence of events that left no room for innocent interpretation. The Diamondbacks pitcher had been watching Ohtani the entire game. Every at-bat. Every swing. Every adjustment. Not with the focused attention of a competitor preparing to execute. With something colder than that. With the kind of deliberate study that precedes a decision already made. When Ohtani stepped into the box for what would become the defining moment of the game, something in the energy of the stadium shifted. Players on both benches felt it. Umpires felt it. The broadcasters, reviewing the footage afterward, noted that even their commentary slowed instinctively in the seconds before it happened. And then the pitch came. The sequence needs to be understood clearly before anything else can be properly examined. The first two pitches of the at-bat were unremarkable. Competitive. Within the normal boundaries of what a pitcher does when facing the most dangerous hitter in the sport. High and tight. Testing the edges. Standard professional baseball. The third pitch was different. It was not aimed at a corner. It was not aimed at a zone. It came directly at Ohtani's body with a velocity and a trajectory that left him with fractions of a second to react. He moved. But not fast enough. The sound of the ball making contact was the signal that something serious had happened. Not the hollow crack of bat on ball that fills a stadium with energy. Something duller. More immediate. More human. Ohtani went down. The stadium, which had been operating at its normal competitive volume, became something else entirely in that instant. 50,000-60,000 people processing the same image at the same time and arriving at the same place of collective stillness. Medical staff moved immediately. Players from both dugouts leaned forward. The umpires gathered near the mound with expressions that carried the specific gravity of people who understand they are watching something that is going to matter well beyond this game. The pitcher stood on the mound. And the detail that multiple witnesses have since noted, the detail that became central to every conversation that followed, is that he did not move toward the fallen batter. He did not show the instinctive concern that every other player on the field immediately displayed. He stood. He watched. And his expression, according to those close enough to read it, carried nothing that resembled remorse. The immediate medical assessment on the field was cautious, which in the language of sports medicine means it was serious. Ohtani was attended to on the field before being helped off. The details of the exact nature of the injury were not released immediately, which is standard procedure and also the kind of information vacuum that allows the worst fears to expand unchecked. In the stands, the mood had shifted from competitive intensity to something closer to genuine alarm. Because Shohei Ohtani is not simply a baseball player whose physical absence affects a team's win-loss record. He is the center of an entire franchise's identity. He is the reason hundreds of thousands of tickets have been sold. He is the face of a television contract, a merchandise operation, a global marketing presence that extends into markets that American baseball has spent decades trying to reach. His health is not just a sporting concern. It is an organizational one. It is a commercial one. And for millions of fans in Japan who set their alarms to watch him play despite the time difference, it is a deeply personal one. The moment Ohtani left that field, the questions began multiplying faster than anyone could answer them. How serious is the injury? How long will he be out? Was this intentional? And if it was, what is the league going to do about it? That last question had already reached the commissioner's office before the inning was over. In baseball, the question of intent on a hit by pitch is one of the most contested and complicated in the sport. The official rules provide umpires with the authority to eject pitchers and issue warnings when they believe a pitch was thrown intentionally at a batter. But the standard for proving intent in real time is almost impossibly high. Pitchers miss their spots. Balls slip. Sequencing that looks deliberate from the outside can have technical explanations that make it, at minimum, defensible. This situation does not appear to have those defenses available. The evidence being reviewed by MLB investigators reportedly includes the pitch trajectory data from the stadium's tracking systems, which provides a precise mathematical picture of where the ball was aimed and how that compares with every other pitch thrown by the same pitcher in the same game. It includes the pre-game communications and signals exchanged in the Diamondbacks dugout. It includes the behavioral evidence of how the pitcher responded in the immediate aftermath of the play. Each of these data points, taken individually, might be explainable. Taken together, they are telling a story that the league's investigators are treating with the urgency that the phrase urgent investigation actually implies. Sources familiar with the process describe the early stages of the inquiry as moving with unusual speed. The normal pace of a disciplinary review, which can unfold over days or even weeks, has been compressed. Interviews that typically take place over several sessions are being completed in single sittings. Data that usually requires extended analysis is being prioritized above everything else on the investigation team's schedule. The implication of that speed is significant. When the league moves this fast, it is not because the situation is unclear. It is because the situation is already clear enough that the remaining work is about documentation rather than discovery. Inside the Diamondbacks organization, the hours following the incident were characterized by the specific kind of institutional chaos that erupts when an organization suddenly realizes it is at the center of a story it cannot control. The pitcher was pulled from the game immediately following the play. Whether that decision was made by the manager or was a reaction to the umpire's warning that had been issued, the effect was the same. He was removed. He was unavailable for comment. A wall of organizational protocol descended around him with the kind of speed that suggests the wall had been prepared in advance. The team's official statement, released within 2 hours of the game ending, was careful in the way that statements written by legal teams are always careful. Concern was expressed. Regret was mentioned. The word intentional was conspicuously absent from anywhere in the document. That absence was noticed. In the hours that followed, as the baseball world processed what it had witnessed, the Diamondbacks organization found itself in an increasingly uncomfortable position. The competitive story of the series, the strategic matchups and lineup decisions and pitching rotations that had dominated the pre-game conversation, had been completely replaced by a single question. Did they mean to do this? And the careful language of their official statement, the deliberate avoidance of anything that directly addressed that question, was being interpreted by almost everyone reading it as something that felt very much like an answer. Major League Baseball's statement on the investigation used language that the sports observers recognized immediately as significant. Urgent. Comprehensive. All available evidence. These are not the words the league uses for routine disciplinary reviews. These are the words used when the commissioner's office has already made a preliminary judgment about the seriousness of what occurred and is signaling to the sport, to the public, and to the players involved exactly how seriously it intends to proceed. The investigation is understood to be examining several distinct questions simultaneously. Was the pitch intentional? What evidence exists of premeditation? Were there communications within the Diamondbacks organization before or during the game that indicate a deliberate strategy targeting Ohtani physically? And critically, what did team leadership know, and when did they know it? That last question is the one that has the potential to extend the consequences of this incident well beyond a single player's suspension. If the investigation finds evidence that the decision to target Ohtani was organizational rather than individual, if it finds that coaches or managers directed or approved of what happened on that mound, the consequences would reach into the franchise's leadership structure in ways that would reshape the team for years. The baseball world is waiting for those findings with a kind of focused attention that the sport rarely generates outside of the postseason. The medical update, when it finally came, did what medical updates in these situations always do. It provided some information and left the most important questions unanswered. The injury was confirmed. Its severity was described in the carefully graduated language that sports organizations use when they want to communicate seriousness without triggering panic. Words like evaluation and day-to-day and monitoring closely that tell you everything and nothing simultaneously. What was clear was that Ohtani would not be available in the immediate term. For a team built around his presence, his production, and the specific kind of energy that he generates in a lineup simply by standing in it, his absence is not a subtraction. It is a restructuring. The players around him know this. They have spoken about it in interviews throughout the season. About how his preparation raises the standard for everyone. About how his presence in the lineup changes how opposing pitchers approach every other hitter. About how the discipline and focus he brings to every single day of work creates an environment where ordinary effort simply does not feel sufficient. Without him, the team does not fall apart. These are professional athletes of significant ability who have proven they can compete at the highest level. But the game is different when he is not in it. Everyone in the sport knows this. Including, one, suspects, the people who decided to make the pitch that took him off the field. The reaction from across the sport has been swift and has carried an emotional weight that goes beyond the normal response to a disciplinary incident. Players who have spent entire careers carefully maintaining diplomatic neutrality on controversial topics have spoken directly. Veterans who understand the physical risks of the game and have accepted those risks as part of their professional lives are drawing a clear distinction between acceptable danger and what happened on that mound. The distinction they keep returning to is the same one. There is a difference between competing hard and targeting someone deliberately. There is a difference between playing aggressively within the spirit of the game and making a decision designed to physically remove the other team's most important player. The first is baseball. The second is something else. International reaction, particularly from Japan, has added a dimension to the story that extends well beyond the competitive stakes of any single series. Ohtani's significance in his home country cannot be overstated. He is not simply a famous athlete. He is a national symbol. The idea that he was deliberately targeted and injured on a baseball field has generated a level of outrage that the sport's global leadership is watching carefully. Because baseball's future, commercially and culturally, is increasingly tied to its ability to grow and maintain its presence in international markets. And how the league handles this moment will be watched in those markets with an attention that extends well beyond the outcome of any investigation. Shohei Ohtani has faced pressure that most human beings cannot imagine. He has stood on the mound in front of entire nations. He has stepped to the plate in moments where the weight of expectation would have broken ordinary athletes. He has built a career on the foundation of preparation so disciplined and character so consistent that the sport itself has begun measuring its standards against him. He has faced all of it. And now he faces something different. Not a pitcher trying to outthink him. Not a defensive alignment designed to neutralize his strengths. Not the psychological pressure of a high-stakes moment. An injury sustained in circumstances that the league is now investigating with urgency. The baseball world is watching two things simultaneously right now. It is watching the investigation unfold and waiting to see whether the league's response matches the seriousness of what occurred. And it is watching Ohtani. Watching how he recovers. Watching how he returns. Watching whether the version of him that steps back onto that field carries any visible trace of what happened to him, or whether he simply comes back and does what he has always done. Those who know him best already know the answer. He will come back. He will prepare with the same discipline. He will compete with the same focus. He will perform at the same standard. Because nobody, and nothing, has ever managed to permanently alter what Ohtani brings to this game. And the pitcher standing on that mound, waiting for the investigation's conclusion, is about to learn that the most lasting consequence of what he did is not the injury he caused. It is the standard he failed to meet.